I'm Sarit. I am from All Services. So, Kali, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I'm so excited to see everybody else here. We're here to make noise. So
We
let's get
are here to
started.
make noise. That's right. Okay, so I am again Dr. Callie Berg-Guyman. I'm the founder of AcuCongress. I'm a 27-year federal lobbyist, but I'm also, for the last, I've been licensed since 2014. I have a doctorate in Oriental medicine. I have a master's in public health, and what we are trying to do is the same thing that we've been trying to do for quite some time, and that is become included in Medicare, because as we well know, Medicare covers acupuncture. It just doesn't cover licensed acupuncturist. So that's what we're doing here today. And I've brought some friends along with me who are going to be a part of this fly-in that's coming up. And that's primarily what we're here to talk about today.
And Medicare is so important. I mean, me as a biller, I see we all have so many patients that come to us, and the elderly patients, and they themselves get confused because they think that they're coming to get acupuncture treatment, but they can't, right? Because they have to go to an MD. And that's the exact thing that we want to change. So what are we trying to do? How are we doing this? I know we have stuff scheduled for the week of March 13th until the 16th. So let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we can all get involved.
Okay. So Medicare inclusion, and I know this is a hot topic among practitioners in our field. There are people who are for being a part of this. There are people who are against it. But let me just say this. It's already covered. And so if you're against it, all you're saying is you're against licensed acupuncturist being a part of Medicare. Because as it stands, anybody who has any form of acupuncture in scope, be it dry needling or they're now pushing intramuscular needling. As Blake can tell you, we also have definitions for naturopathic acupuncture. There's a lot on the state. We won't call them encroachment necessarily in every situation, but when we look at it from a federal perspective, it's about access to federal programs and therefore patients. So anytime we see things like PTs who are seeking to have dry needling in their scope without a referral, what that means is they are ahead of the game when it comes to being able to perform acupuncture down the road when acupuncture is covered in its entirety. And it will be, guys. We expect that very, very soon. They will be able to be reimbursed and be able to see their patients without a referral, because that's the way it's written in their scopes of practice where they're seeking to do that. So everything that we're looking at with regards to Medicare inclusion also involves our ability to be able to take part in student loan forgiveness programs. Federal student loan forgiveness is available through Indian Health Services. Help me, Blake. Veterans Affairs, some VAs.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a murky situation with all of it.
Okay. All right. So not enough is what I'm saying. What this does is it includes us in within CMS, who provides, I believe, 98% of the funding for residency programs. It opens us up to possibilities for things like that. And so I think when we start looking at being included in Medicare, see it primarily as a means and a method to not just only keep your Medicare eligible patients with regards to their age, and many of you have had patients for decades, and so you don't want to lose them. You don't want them jumping through hoops with regards to being able to be reimbursed for acupuncture. And then finally, you want to look at it as we are a part of pain management. And that's how we are viewed at a federal level. And unfortunately, acupuncture is the shiny new opioid in the room. And so everybody is seeking to put some form of acupuncture in their scope. And they're doing it without learning any traditional Chinese medicine or really any of our principles, our guiding principles for how we perform our services. And so all of these people, from the PTs to the athletic trainers to the chiros, they're all viewing this from a pain management perspective and also a substance use disorder perspective. That's why I say it's the shiny new opioid. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that everybody is a potential long-term disability and therefore Social Security Disability Insurance patient, SSDI. Okay?
So what are we doing about it?
So we have language that we have been running for several years. We used to run a very broad-based bill that included the VA and the TRICARE, the DoD. But because they have been working in rules for some time, the VA and the DoD recognize, and we are being added as providers with the DoD. We want to let them handle that in rules. Any sort of mandate at this point is going to be sort of an overreach. So we want to focus on the CMS portion of this, the Medicare portion of that. It makes this bill very, very concise. We have offered up 2 amendments. One is to shore up our education and our credentialing. And that's a very big possibility for us. We want to handle things while we can before we get to rules, because we are relegated to the terms qualified acupuncture services and qualified acupuncture or acupuncturist. And so what we've also done is we've tried to expand the definition of qualified acupuncture services so that it includes more of the things that are in our scope. We may run into some problems on that one. We may not have the regulators behind that. And so we have to be able to part with that pretty quickly. But by and large, we are running a bill that very, very easily, all it does is say who we are, what we do, what it takes to get there. It adds us to these advisory councils that is so needed for us to be a part of so that we can help direct policy down the road. It puts us into the Public Health Services Act, and so we would qualify for multiple avenues for student loan forgiveness programs. We still have momentum. We had 13 co-sponsors when we left off at the end of the last session, and we really worked hard last session, guys. We just got a very, very late start. We didn't start until 8 months in. And I have to say, that fly-in that we did in 2021, that was a blast. And we ended up with 3 day of co-sponsors. We have such good people working right now. And now all we need is more. And so we're running the same language. We're looking for co-sponsors before our introduction. We are allowed to do this. We've been working with the office. It has taken us a little bit longer to get an introduction because, bless her wonderful soul, Ellen Hamilton became chief of staff. Her replacement begins March 1st. Is that 2 days from now? March 1st. Wow. And then we'll get up to speed, and we expect an introduction pretty quickly thereafter. So this fly-in is incredibly important. We are either asking for co-sponsors before introduction or co-sponsors upon introduction. It doesn't really change what we're doing. We're holding a congressional briefing called We Are The Acupuncturists. We have Bonnie Bolash, who's going to be presenting the history of acupuncture regulation in the United States. And we've got Michelle Lau coming to talk about the education and the credentialing. Mina Larson is offering up a PDF so that Michelle has some support in that area, but she's flying back in from a board meeting, so she can't make it that day. I will close the day out with where we are federally and where we could be federally. And then we're going to have all of our great people at Acupuncture on the Hill, Wave, Rhonda. And that whole week leading up to it, we're going to have this fly-in. You don't have to be here, boots on the ground. You don't have to be here every single day. I need 45 minutes of your life. That's what I'm looking for. And we have all ways to train you. I want us to make as much noise as we can. The physical therapists are on the Hill right now, guys. There's 16,000 of them. We don't even have an industry that has been able to put up 1,000 people for a fly-in. We need to make sure they hear from us before we get to appropriations. Blake, would you like to explain why appropriations is so important?
I will never do it as good of justice as you do, and I will potentially always misspeak. So please jump in and correct me if not, if I do. But appropriations is when essentially you get to figure out whether you're going to be burned away with all the chaff, and you need to make sure that your bill and its language is going to be brought into another bill during that stripping process. But that is a point where you can see whether or not your bill is going to make it or break it.
That's correct. So appropriations happens every year. Every single bill that's introduced must go through appropriations. And so it's an opportunity. It's also why it's one of the most expensive times to be in DC because everyone is there. Blake and I ran a fly-in once with about 1,000 people. And it just so happened that they switched the time for appropriations and suddenly I had 200 cancellations in like 10 minutes and it was wild. It is a wild time. It's the most important time to be there is any time that they're going to mark up a bill, right? And so if we can gain as many co-sponsors going into appropriations, that's what makes March so incredibly important. We've got to have some volume before appropriations, because that's where we get the opportunity to see if our language, and there's several possibilities for our language to be stripped into opioid packages, health and wellness packages, or behavioral health is becoming more interesting down the road, preventive services. There's just a number of things that we could be involved in if we just get our language somewhere. And so
I'm an acupuncturist and I want to get involved. I don't have a lot of time on my hand.
right.
I want to get involved somewhat. Where do I go? What do I do?
I'm going to show you. So let me share my screen really quickly. Okay. All right, if everybody can see this. So AcuCongress.com, I have thrown a lot of time and effort into. I got tired of Basecamp. I know everybody else did too. And so what we've been doing is creating a digital platform, and this website is the basis for that. And so on the homepage, we will always, and I'm going to try and just lightly touch on this, but anything that's important will always go on the homepage. So people don't have to look far if they want to do that. But we've also created an action center. And so with regards to this action center, if people want to get involved, we have plenty of options that are federal, state, and then regulatory calls to action. So if they go into federal calls to action, right here, you're going to be able to see there's your registration for the Quarterfly, the fly-in that we're doing March 13th through the 16th. It gives you all your various options. We've also got another federal call to action that has to do with a Twitter campaign. We want you to invite your congressman to that congressional briefing. If you want state advocacy stuff, we've got that too. So if there are opportunities that you're looking for to help your state associations out or seeing what they're up to, check and see if we've got something here. And then finally, we've got these regulatory calls for commentary. And so that's going to be going out as well, because it's one of the most important things that we can do in order to shape policy is to make sure that the regulatory policy calls for comments, we are being as present as possible. So so they can go ahead.
Do I need to come to DC in order to get involved, or is there?
No, so let's talk about that fly-in for a second. Actually, if you look here, I'm not sure if everybody can even see that. We have options for you. So if you want to come, we do not recommend that you come unless you live local to DC. We want you to go home every single night that you're there. Nobody needs to be putting out a lot of money for hotels, nothing like that. But if you live in the Delmarva area, I'd include Pennsylvania in that, you know, West Virginia, anybody who wants to come in, please take a look at the hard targets, and I'm going to show you where you can find that really quickly. If you look in the Action Center, just sorry, on that page, It gives you our bill language, and it also gives you the congressional contacts that are right there. It gives you every single legislator and all of their Health LA information. Our hard targets are all listed right here. And so as you're going through, if you see a hard target and you know that we're going to be meeting and you're close by, then we definitely want you to be a part of that. I don't know what's happening, so I'm going to stop this share now. So anyway, AcuCongress.com is where you find all of that stuff. If you're local to DC, especially people in Maryland that I just worked with, we would love for you to be there. Beth Nugent, I know I won't be able to see you that particular Friday, but we do know that we've had a heavy presence from New York before. It's a nice train ride. So if people from Asney want to get together, I would love to see and work with you guys again. Everybody else, there is a virtual option, and we really, really do need for all of you to take part in that. If you cannot afford that, those are $49 to $79. We give 10% discounts for any affiliation. I don't care who you belong to. You know, come this way, put in affiliate 23, lie to me. I don't care. If it'll save you some money and you can be involved, we can also be connecting you with people that I think that would be important for you to meet. So, and then there are free options. If you want to help us with this, Blake can tell you right now, we will take all the tech support that we can get for a virtual fly-in. They are not a lot of fun, and we've made it as easy as possible. We've spanned it over the course of 4 days instead of one. We really, really would love for people to take advantage of those service options so that they can be a part of this. And if you don't have the time or resources to do any of that, please forward any information that you get to your colleagues so that they can be a part too.
So I'm a student, I'm in acupuncture school.
Mhm.
Can I get involved?
Please, we've been begging for student involvement. There's so many schools that are actually close to the DC area. If there was ever a group that I'm super targeting that I'm just not getting a lot of feedback from, it is the students in this field. And so we encourage students to learn to advocate for their profession. It's really important that you get involved because the landscape of this profession, and I'm speaking to all of you who thank you for all of your service, all of these decades. You have been ambassadors for our profession. However, if you think that this landscape is going to stay the same way that it has been, the way that you built your business, that is changing. And so I know that there are lots of you who are thinking, I'm not going to be in this business much longer. Do I really need to get involved? I actually have heard from many of you. And so I'm saying this because they've asked me to say this to you. Think about the generations to come, please. And we need everybody. We need everybody to recognize the level of, I mean, it's a hostile takeover out here. There's so many people from sorry, help me with it. The occupational therapists have introduced a bill in which they would be doing acupuncture. Now they have it at 1,000 hours and they would be taking the NCCAOM exam. So quite frankly, it's the occupational therapists are showing the most respect for this medicine moving forward. Everybody else has basically kind of taken the position that they're doing something different than traditional Chinese medicine is what I keep hearing them say. We can't afford to lose this session, and we can't afford to lose the first quarter of the session. So we've tried to make this very affordable. For those of you who are going to the ASA meeting in May, this is a really excellent opportunity for you to create a relationship with your legislator and that legislative office before you get there. And it's also a really good way to form those bonds so that you can help them out at a live meeting. We want to see them have the most productive, impactful meeting that they possibly can. So we're going to try and do these fly-ins every quarter so that people can keep those relationships going. And again, we'll keep these nice and inexpensive so that you can be a part of this. If you're a state association, I've taken 5% off the front end if for groups of 10. And you still get that additional 10% discount. So we need people, I want them to feel us that week, right? Because then we head into appropriations. And like I said, I'm moving back to DC and moving in with my son for the month of April so that I can be on the ground every day and not lose anything.
Thank you, Colleen. I really appreciate that. I know we are going to keep that short. The goal is really to make a lot of noise and really see a lot of involvement from the acupuncturists. We want to see whether you're helping via virtual or you come in person, whatever it is that you can do, every little bit counts. So get involved.
I just want to hear from Beth Nugent. Can you talk about the last fly-in just really quickly? Because you were responsible for one that unfortunately we lost that office, but you were responsible for one about a week after, and you were a part of the meetings that were a part of the day of co-sponsor, which was Grace Mung. Can you just say what the virtual feeling was, how that worked out? Because New York had a pretty big crowd.
Yeah, so it was a great meeting with Grace Mung's office. She was already kind of on board with our legislation. I met with Tom Swazi's office, who is in my district, who we've lost this last election cycle. However, introducing this information to these staffers, to these legislators, is eye-opening for them. They don't really understand what acupuncture is all about or how we're excluded from the SSA. They understand that acupuncture is a theory, or maybe they've had some experience, but if, as practitioners, if we bring patients, we bring real world experience to these staffers and to these legislators. Right. And they get it, and they ask pointed questions, and they ask questions that are relevant, and we can have a cogent argument as to why we, the experts in the field, need to be included in Medicare.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I do not want to be Chicken Little. I really want you guys to understand that I see this as a rallying cry. Once I finally saw, we all hang out together at CPT level, and so I've always known that the athletic trainers were eventually going to be making their way into the mix. But at some point, we've got to start protecting our education and this medicine. And this is our opportunity to federally put some things in place that might stem the tide of encroachment in the states. And so please, by all means, guys, get on board. Contact all of your friends and your family and your patients, and let's try and roar if we can. So, all right.
Thank you, everyone.